I'm Josh Allen, and welcome to the Baked In Podcast, where I sit down with industry innovators to uncover the unique ideas and values that are baked into their businesses and have led to extraordinary success. This podcast is presented by Busey Bank. Busey Bank has built on that foundation of strength and service, delivering expert advice and tailored solutions for business and individuals for 155 years. And they also have a strong commitment to community and the environment via lending. Since 2021, they've provided over $25 million in green financing, including energy efficiency improvements, historic preservation, and commercial social development. You can learn more about their impact at busey.com. On this week's episode, I sit down with Fred Burmer, the newly appointed CEO of St. Louis's beloved Lion's Choice. Burmer started working in quick service restaurants as a part-time worker at Pizza Hut while attending the University of Central Florida in Orlando, and ultimately grew that franchise company from 6 to more than 50 locations. He later spent years with Yum Brands, the corporate leader of Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut. He brings all that expertise to the 57-year-old, 30-unit Lion's Choice. We talk about the value of working in the service industry, his initial focus after extensive customer research, and the future plans of expansion. Lots of great stuff in this one. Let's roll. So you started as an hourly employee at Pizza Hut.
I did.
If I read that correctly. And look, I've been somebody who's gone on record as saying everybody should work in the service industry, and especially the food service industry, especially hourly, because I just think it teaches a lot of lessons. And we just did a fun podcast with my kids, and they've all had to pack bread growing up in the factory. Tell me what you gleaned from that experience in the back of a Pizza Hut, and how has that kind of stayed with you over the years?
I think that's a great question, and it's something when I meet when I join new organizations and all, and I meet the team, it's one of the first things that I like to communicate, and it's something I'm really proud of for a couple of reasons. But I worked every position that was out there. I started off what I call busting suds, washing dishes. That was before you pushed a button to wash the dishes. We were actually leaning over a 3-compartment sink to wash them. And I worked every position, from a server to a cook to a shift manager, assistant manager, right on up through.
Because Pizza Hut was a restaurant at that time, right? It was much more of a full service.
Yeah, they weren't. There was no delivery at the time. It was all what they call the red roofs.
Right.
I worked all those positions, and I think what it's really done is it's given me such a respect that I'll never forget or never lose for the people that are working on the front line and just how hard they work. That's where the action is, and so that's one thing that that I think has helped me in my career, and gives me a lot of credibility with the team when I meet them, because again, I just will never forget what it's like to do that. I know what it's like to work front line. And then the other piece is it's just given me a real privilege to be able to help people move up in an organization. It's any time we can develop from within, we'll take it. And there's plenty of opportunity, as in this business. There's nothing sexy about the restaurant business, but there's a lot of opportunity for people who have the capability and want to move up. So.
And that's what you did, right? So from that Pizza Hut location, you were working there in college. You ended up moving up and eventually helping them grow to 50 units or something?
57.
Like that?
Yeah, when I started, we had 6 restaurants, and I was very fortunate that the franchisee at the time, this was in Orlando, saw something in me, and he knew I was working my way through college at the same time, and said, hey, if you want, I'll be happy to teach you the ropes of the business. And I was smart enough to understand what an opportunity that was going to be, and I took advantage of it, and eventually became a part owner in that business. And when we sold it in 1990, we had 57. We had built 51 more restaurants.
Wow. Yeah. So from all of that, how do you sort of define your leadership style? And then from that, sort of what makes you, because we're going to jump right into the fact that you are now leading a legacy brand that people in this town take a tremendous amount of pride and ownership in at Lion's Choice. What's your style, and how did it kind of make you uniquely qualified, do you think, to be the to be the bearer of the future for Lion's Choice?
Two things in my leadership style. First of all, I'm totally glasses half full. I will not dwell or allow my team to dwell on the things that aren't working. Let's focus on the things that are working for us, number one. And then the other piece of it is let's always do the best that we can do. Forget what the targets are. The targets are, okay, if we achieve those, that's great, but was that the best that we could do? Sometimes the best that we could do would be maybe a little bit short of the target, but a lot of times it's north of the target. And I really try and instill the culture in our organization that let's do the best that we can do. Different, we have about 30 restaurants. Some restaurants can only get so high just because of the circumstances and the environment that they're in. But then there's others that can exceed those targets. So let's not be looking over our shoulder just to see if we're just ahead. Let's just be looking forward to make sure that we're doing the best that we can possibly do.
And how does that I mean, you're coming from, you were at Yum Brands, right? Mm-hmm. So that's Taco Bell, that's Pizza Hut. I mean, this is a big national chains.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I mean, with 30 restaurants, I'm not even sure Lion's Choice is on anybody's national radar. And I think I read that you hadn't even heard of the brand when the opportunity presented itself for you to come. Where do you think, how has that experience been in making that sort of, and I'm not going to say step down, because obviously the quality of Lion's Choice, just a different environment, right? And how has that leadership style paid dividends for you, or is it paying dividends for you coming to this smaller, more local, iconic kind of brand versus a national brand?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Having been with the Yum Brands when I was first approached back in January of 23, I grew up in the Southeast, and I've lived in Minnesota and Seattle. I've lived around the country, but hadn't heard of Lion's Choice. And then I was approached by a recruiter who was engaged by Lion's Choice to find the replacement for the existing CEO at the time, Mike Cupstas. And I immediately did some research about it, and the thing that really struck me about the brand, even though it's relatively small, was the tremendous customer loyalty that they had. I mean, God help the person who goes on the web and says something bad about their beloved Lion's Choice. And the first thing I thought of, and I tell this to everybody, but I compared it to Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson brags about them having such a loyal customer base that they actually get, tattoos of the Harley Davidson logo on them. And they brag about that, and rightfully so. Come to find out, there's a couple of people in town. One is a radio personality, Moon, who has a Lion's Choice tattoo on their arm. I thought what a privilege it would be to be, the steward of a brand that has that kind of, customer loyalty, and they want to grow. I obviously engaged in it, and the rest is history. By April, that was in January. By April, I was starting to work here, and the thing that that I really think that's helped is I've got an opportunity, or the thing that really is made it a privilege for me and to really have some fun with it is this is really the first time being in a smaller organization where you can make some strategic moves and make some tactical moves. You can operate, you can turn on a dime. One of the things that I hated about
down the street and work the line and see what the hell happens, right?
Yeah, but I mean when I was with Yum Brands, for example, like with Pizza Hut, and I've been with all three of the brands, Taco Bell, KFC, but there's so many locations and all. When you have an idea or something you want to try, it's like turning the Queen Mary. Whereas here, we've been able to do some things in the last year. I've been here a little over a year. We've been able to try some things and do some things that would take years to attempt in a bigger brand. And plus, just having less bureaucracy. Having there's about 6 or 7 of us that really have the final decision making. Although there's a lot of people involved in the ultimate fact finding, but 6 or 7 of us can make a decision very fast, and we can try things. I call it fail fast. If it's going to work, it's going to work. If it's not, let's find out right away.
So how do you? It's interesting. I talked to a number of people in the last week because I'm trying to figure out what box you put Lion's Choice in. Right? It has a very special, very unique sort of setting in that it is fast food. There are drive-throughs. Like it does have that connotation, but this iconic nature, the locality, the specialization of the product mix, price point certainly being higher than some other stuff. Like where do you put? How do you describe Lion's Choice?
Yeah, I mean, when it was described to me, it was we're kind of an upscale QSR, quick service restaurant. But I think no matter what we do, we're not going to be able to escape that we're, let's face it, if you've got a drive-through and you rely on that kind of thing, you're QSR. We're quick service restaurants. The difference between us and the rest is, our roast beef is something that you would get in a deli setting, for an example, and I don't know, maybe that's somewhere where we lean towards that, but we're really more of a, at the end of the day, we're really more of a deli. I mean, you're getting deli quality roast beef. We make no compromises on anything really, but our meats, turkey, ham, particularly our roast beef, we'll make no compromises on that.
So who do you view as the competition? I mean, is that then Panera as a quick service sandwich shop, or is it Like how do you view competition in that environment? If you view yourself as a deli, obviously that's a big differentiator from some of the we like the meats or whatever the Arby's slogan is. So who is the competition?
Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't define your competition. Your competition is what it is. Your customers define who your competition is. And right now, like it or not, it's going to be, an Arby's, for example. One of the things that we did shortly after I got here was some consumer research, and we found out that, believe it or not, there's still about 50% of the population in the St. Louis DMA, the market area, that don't really know who we are. And that, to me, was good and bad. I hated to hear that, but the good areas, I got lots of, green field to draw from. But, people, whether we like it or not, are going to compare us to an Arby's, which, that's really one of the challenges. The biggest challenge that we have right now is, how do we communicate the differentiation, the product differentiation between us and Arby's? And the best way to do that is just to get them to try us. And then once you've tried it, then there's no more comparison.
So is the target customer other fast food customer? I mean, do you as you guys talk about that and think about that, do you define the target customer? Yeah,
and really our target customer is really defined more of a demographic. I mean, I'm not going to go target a McDonald's or customer necessarily, or anybody in particular. We're really looking for a particular demographic. What we do know is our demographic skews older, 45 and up, where we've really been, we don't want to forget those people, because that's our, that's
they
our
grew
legacy.
Up with the brand, right?
Yeah, that's our legacy. But we really are trying to become more relevant to the 18 to 35, target DMA, and we're doing that in our marketing and our even the way that it looks, the way that it feels, the way it sounds, and that kind of thing. And fortunately, we're starting to see some movement.
Social media and TikTok and trying to do all that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a lot of research on, that group. What do they listen to? What are they watching? How do you talk to them? And we've got a great, one of the things we did was we hired a new agency shortly after I got here, and they clearly understand what we're trying to accomplish, and they're doing a heck of a job, getting through to those folks. We're starting to see some real movement there.
I mean, it's hard if we can go down that path for a second, because TV doesn't seem to be the answer anymore. I mean, what is the channels in which you use to try to define that message, to have enough time to do it? Do you lean that heavily into social media, or are there more traditional channels that you're using for that advertising?
Yeah, terrestrial TV is not, when you're our size, you really can't afford that anyway. Right. And it's such a shotgun approach. What we're able to do is we're able to do some very targeted TV, if you will, through the streaming systems. Like, for example, I have YouTube TV, and I don't know if if you have cable or whatever it is, but when you're watching, like a YouTube or a streaming service, they know who's watching and what age you are, what you like to do, all that other stuff. And so we can, actually target advertising to those individuals. I know, when I'm watching, I'm over 60, and when I'm watching, I'm getting commercials that's trying to tell me that I can sell my life insurance policy. So I'll never get a Lion's Choice commercial, at least if we're trying to target the 18 to 35. So we're able to get through digital means and stuff. We can just target exactly who it is we want to talk to, and it's very affordable that way. It's very efficient.
And you can get good metrics back to determine the success rate and the engagement and the effectiveness of that.
Absolutely. And we get reports on that every week. Who's listening, how long did they listen to the ad when it came up? You're on a computer. I'm sure you get all kinds of ads that are targeted specifically to you somehow. And we're able to get reports to know who's watching it, how long do they watch it, did they click to the next level, just short of did you actually come in and buy something? And sometimes we can tell that.
Because it's hard to drive offers to because they're not buying something on the spot, right? So it's hard to drive the offer to know if they made it all the way in. It seems like in the research that I did that the initial projects that you've done in the last year have been kind of quality menu driven. So you introduced the remix sandwich, which was the new sandwich on the Texas toast versus the traditional sesame seed bun, was the loaded fries that you sort of just, like the trashed fries, I think they're called, that you just introduced. And so obviously that was purposeful, because you strike me as somebody who's doing things purposely. What was the reason that you started there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. I said earlier, the challenge that we have is how do we communicate our product? What's different between us and the other guys? We can't afford to go do a 30-minute infomercial. If I could explain it to you. You could see that, hey, we get whole round top round roast beef. It's trimmed, hand trimmed. It's lean. It's sliced and roasted, on site. But I can't do that. So we really challenged ourselves. How do we communicate that? So my challenge to the team was, I want two things. I want the existing customer that's coming in, the ones that are lifers, I want to give them a reason to come in more often. And then I also want to, if I get a new customer, I want to give them something when they come in, they'll never ever compare us to the other guys. And so that's where we came up with the remix. And the remix was actually developed by our employees. I noticed myself that I was getting a little less excited about going as frequently as I was to Lion's Choice. I was eating in Lion's Choice 2-3 times a week, because it's my job, right? And I was enjoying it, but I noticed it was like I'm getting a little tired of the same sandwich. So I started asking employees, hey, what do you do? How do you fix your sandwich? And what do you do to liven it up a little bit? And that's when they started telling me. Again, they're doing it with stuff that's in the restaurant already.
Sure.
And one of the employees said, hey, I put it on Texas toast, and then somebody else said, yeah, and I put Swiss cheese on it. I tried that, and it was like a whole new sandwich. And I thought, well, maybe we're onto something here. So we continued to iterate that sandwich, and it ended up with, we put in a large portion of roast beef on it, 2 slices of Swiss cheese instead of 1, and then somebody had the bright idea, let's source some garlic aioli and put it on it, and like, okay, enough's enough. This is awesome. Let's figure out a name for it. That's when
aioli was probably never uttered within the walls of Lion's Choice over
not
57 years in advance.
Not ever. And it was just a whole new. That Texas toast gives it a whole new flavor profile, a whole new texture from the sesame seed bun. And again, we didn't want our customers who are diehard, give me my sesame seed bun, my original, and we didn't. And we didn't scare them off, but we came up with something that our customers are telling us, our regulars are saying, you know what, I'm coming in more often because of that. Bingo, that's what we wanted to do. And then we've got new customers that are coming in going, where have you been all my life? The interesting story about that is Marvin Gibbs, who was one of the founders of Lion's Choice back in '67, he and we've got a pretty close relationship, and I like to run things off of him because I want to be respectful of a brand that's been around for 56 years. And so when I got ready to do this, I invited him to join me for lunch at our Ellisville location, and I said, Marvin, I want you to try this sandwich. And I told him before he tried it, I said, look, if I were starting Lion's Choice today, this would be the OG sandwich, and you'd have to ask me if you wanted a sesame seed bun. I said, what do you think about that? He took one bite and goes, you're right. This is awesome. And he even took one home to his wife, Christine, and he texted me back later that day, and she goes, Christine loved it. And so that really gave me the courage to say, okay, let's put a program behind this. And that started April 9th. We went live with that, and we did
of this year.
Of this year,
okay.
Yeah. And it's just taken off. We've seen a tremendous difference. I mean, as you know, and I'm sure you hear and read, as do your listeners, about QSRs complaining about traffic declines and sales declines, and they're blaming it on the price increases and things like that they've had to take to cover the inflationary costs of commodities. We have seen, while our competitors' traffic continues to decline, we've seen our traffic start to improve for the first time.
So was it in response to that initial research, though? Was the feedback from the customers kind of a stagnation of the menu and needing change and wanting to see something differently? Was there something that you saw when you came in? Was it something that the leadership saw and sort of charged you? Like did the whole organization recognize that, or was the stagnation of the menu or that perception a surprise when that research came back?
Yeah, I think everybody was surprised at the research. When the research came back, I was very surprised also, because again, all I knew was what I've read online and that type of thing about the brand. And I'm assuming that hey, St. Louis, everybody in St. Louis knows what Lion's Choice is, and that wasn't necessarily the case. But really, it was my own experience about, hey, I'm into this 6 months and I'm getting bored. I mean, I still love it. It's still great, but I don't look forward to going to as often as I did. Now, you get this variety, and that's the way you build. There's only two ways to build traffic: get your existing people to come more often, or get new people in. And this thing is accomplishing both. And it really is. It's something that we think we can build on. In fact, we intend to build on it. We still get comments from customers that they're so used to us doing these limited time offers, LTOs.
Right.
The customers are still on social media and all like, don't let this one go. We hope you keep it. Well, we have every intention. That was our intention from the beginning. Is this is not going to be an LTO. This is going to be something that we want to just really reinvigorate the brand.
And there were some, before your time, I think 2018, 2019, there were some local collaborations with some chefs. So there was a project with Gerard Kraft on a brisket sandwich. There was a ramen with Kui from Nudo. There was, I think the pizza from Four Hands is still going, actually, in their frozen pizza line. Are those things, where does that, there hasn't been a lot new to that program post-pandemic. Is that something that's still on the radar, or were those just sort of, shots in the dark at the time, and you're more focused on menu development in store?
Yeah, I think shot in the dark is a good term. One of the things that, again, it's easy for the new guy to come in, parachute in, and analyze that kind of stuff, and backseat drive, if you will, we were using a shotgun approach as opposed to, a laser rifle approach to, how we're going to develop the business. I study a lot of different brands out there, and I've done a lot of homework, particularly since coming here, on some of the brands that are regional brands that have been successful and regional brands that have not been successful. In-N-Out is one of my heroes. In-N-Out Burger out of the West Coast. Sure. I'm sure you're aware of them. What I really respect about them is their patience and their ability to stay focused on what their core competencies are. Their menu is simple. It's burgers. If you even look at Chick-fil-A, that still considered a regional brand, they're not national yet. They sell chicken patties. We were trying to be all things to all people, and even to the point to where we had a plant-based meatball. And that just isn't our wheelhouse. We're going to stay focused on what we do best, which is fries. We got the best fries in I think the fries are the best in Missouri. No, the fries are the best in St. Louis, voted the best in St. Louis several years in a row. We've got the best fries. We've got, the best quality roast beef that, money can buy. And we've got great custards. And so those are going to be, you're going to see those are going to be our real focuses.
So, I mean, you brought up kind of failure with some of these regional brands. What are failure's been a big topic on this show because I think most of the lessons learned, right, come from things that don't work out. What's your research? That's the biggest thing, is staying away from trying to be all things to all people. Has been the biggest lesson? Have there been kind of memorable failures that you've experienced yourself at Yum when you were with Taco Bell or KFC or anything that you kind of carry forward that have been really kind of signposts for you of let's not make sure I don't make that mistake again?
Yeah. In fact, I talk about it all the time, particularly now. When I started, you mentioned, when I started with Pizza Hut had a level of arrogance about them because, I remember, when people would call or ask me if we delivered back in those days, our line was, we're so good, we don't have to deliver. You'll come get it, And then what I watched was, as they got more and more competitive, what I watched was the national pizza brands start to communicate to their customers that their pizza was only worth $10. And that was 20 years ago. And guess what? They're still advertising $10 pizza, and we know, what things cost today versus 20 years ago. And that's a mistake that I will never make. I saw it happen, and it was like a slow motion train wreck. And I'll never make that. I'm never going to make our brand be about discounting. We're going to provide uncompromising quality, and we're going to charge a fair price for it, and we're not going to be apologetic about it. And that's one of the mistakes that I'm seeing. The first thing that the first thing out of people's mouths are, and I'm talking about McDonald's, Burger King, the big guys, we need to go discount. And all you're doing is sending a message to your customers that that's what your product's worth.
Yeah, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard to drive trial, right? Like part of the discounting structure is to drive trial. Like you're trying to get new customers in the door. Yeah. Taking $2 off the sandwich is probably an easy way to do it, but I agree 100%. Yeah. The fear is that one, that sends a message to your existing customer that maybe it's overpriced if they can afford to give $2 off.
Oh yeah,
the I'll
tell you
sandwich.
What, if you're a first-time customer, I'll give you a meal. I'm not going to give you a discount. Come in, I'll give it to you. I just don't. But if I have to keep coaxing you with that discount, you're not for us. Or we're not for you. I guess more appropriately. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I've got no qualms about getting trial. If that's what it's about. But if I've got to do that to survive, we're not going to be there. We're not going to survive. And so, I mean, to your original question, is there something that I've learned in the past, or a crash and burn? That would probably be the biggest lesson. And we have that conversation every day in our restaurants. You know what? Let's have uncompromising quality, and let's make sure that we deliver on that. Whenever I hear a customer talk about price, it's always with a caveat for what I got or the service that I got or whatever else it was. It's never, if we make our product right, nobody's ever going to complain about the price of it, because we're charging a very fair price. I mean, look, in our business, as you know, there's margins that everybody strives for. We all have the same margins. So it's
and there's always somebody that can do it cheaper.
Yeah, so. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, we have vendors coming to us all the time with a cheaper French fry or a less expensive cut of meat, or I mean, we just had that since I've been here, and we did a taste test, and it was like, we all thought they kind of tasted the same, but we're not messing with those fries. Even if I could save $100,000 that year, it's tempting, but we're just not going to mess with that core stuff.
I mean, you mentioned a minute ago the new guy parachuting in and being able to sort of look at things in hindsight. So I think you guys just made a recent announcement that you're closing a number of restaurants in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I think 4 of the 5 restaurants in Kansas City you're closing. Can we talk about that a little bit? Because obviously, as you talk about expansion, and we'll talk about maybe that in a couple of minutes as you look to go forward, what does the closing of those 4 or 5 underperforming restaurants in Kansas City tell you about the market potential, not only in Kansas City, and outside of or anywhere else outside of St. Louis? Do you think Kansas City's a uniquely different animal, or do you think it's indicative of the challenges that you'll face taking a local brand to Louisville, Indianapolis, Little Rock, something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. That was a tough decision to make. We had 5 beautiful restaurants in Kansas City, and
relatively new, right?
Yeah, with 5 years or so, but they just weren't performing the way we needed them to perform for the investment that was made in those restaurants. And in today's economy and in today's world, going into a new market is a whole different game than it was 10 years ago. And, what our strategy is there is, we believe what our mistake was to go in too fast and not let the demand drive the development. And, one of the things that we want to do is...
Because just for clarification, everything with you all is company owned. There's no franchising.
There are 2 franchisees. There are 2 franchisees.
Is Kansas City, were those...
No, those were company owned.
Okay.
And, what we've decided to do is what I call punt. In Kansas City, we've left one in Liberty, and we believe that we'll be able to operate that one as our flagship. And then we've got a different strategy for going into new markets with really reducing the investment by probably half. We're looking at different type of a building, as opposed to building a restaurant that could, with 70 seats in it, when we only need 25 or 30, we can reduce the footprint of the building. We can reduce the amount of investment that's involved in that, and go into some of the we can go into some of the smaller towns that are out there. What we learned about our customer base in Kansas City was most of them were coming from some of the smaller communities that were 15, 20 minutes out of the different cities that we're in. Well, we want to go there. Obviously we don't have the same sales potential there, so we have to, look at a smaller footprint. And we're looking at 3 different footprints right now. We're looking at doing some inline testing, building some inline locations. We're looking at some of the smaller ones, like you see some of these little coffee kiosks, sure. That are 1,200 square feet, on a pad in a restaurant, that kind of thing. And again, why build a restaurant that costs $2.5 million to build, and you've got this dining room that I call the Taj Mahal that can do 60-70% of your business, but you only have 25% of your business coming inside.
I was going to ask, so 75% of the business is drive-through?
Yeah. Well, off-premise, either drive-through, online ordering, DoorDash, that kind of stuff.
I mean, Kansas City is a unique market. We've all had our thing with Kansas City just being from St. Louis, but we had a bakery in Kansas City in the early 2000s. We didn't make it. Fitz's went over there and didn't make it. I mean, there's been some successful St. Louis brands that have really struggled to get traction. I've always looked at it as it's the easternmost western city in the country, and St. Louis is the westernmost eastern city in the country. But the markets are entirely different, much more chain-driven. The chains that are here have been in Kansas City for 20 years, and it took a long time we have a great independent restaurant town here, and much more local driven, I think. Though Kansas City is obviously evolving. So, do you view Kansas City as indicative of these other markets that could potentially be for expansion, or is it unique and it doesn't necessarily translate to what you'd see in other places?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, to be honest.
And obviously, you've only been in the Midwest for a year.
Yeah. What I do know is our intention is we get a lot of calls. I mean, we get calls every week from people that I want to be a franchisee tomorrow. And I'd love to be tempted to do that, but we've got to make sure that, we've got the model buttoned up so that we can really, we can't guarantee anybody's, success, but we want to make sure that, we've got a model that, we can be assured if you follow this model, you got a high probability of being successful. And that means that we've got to demonstrate that we can go into a market outside of St. Louis and make sure that works. We got to be able to demonstrate that model.
So the models that you're talking about, these 3 different models, the testing ground will be Kansas City for that, to sort of see the expandability of the brand outside of St. Louis?
Yeah, but some of the smaller footprint, the different designs and stuff, those I want to go just outside of St. Louis. I want to keep it fairly close to home so that we can monitor it closely as opposed to 3.5, 4 hours away. What we have done in Kansas City is an interesting experiment that we're doing. We've got one of our team members, one of our employees. He was one of our district managers, a very valued employee. He's been with us since he was 16 years old, and we're putting him in a position out in Kansas City. We call it an operating partner, where it'll actually be a profit sharing venture where we. We're basically sponsoring him. We've got a parachute for him, so there's really, no risk, no downside for him, and giving him an opportunity to, be an entrepreneur, sharing the profitability, and if that works out the way we believe it will, give him an opportunity to actually become a franchisee out there, and then, look at how we decide to, help him develop that market.
And that's unique to the store in Kansas City, different than any of the folks in St.
Yeah, in fact, I don't know of any other. I mean, it's something that we've, kind of designed, custom designed. We think it's something that's could be, a role model for a model that we use in the future. But I don't know of anybody who does anything like that right now.
Do you have any kind of, or what is? I'm sure that you do. What is your sort of daily, weekly dashboard that you're looking at? What are the numbers or the metrics that are important to you as you sort of look across the 25 or 30 stores in the brand? When you're sitting at the mothership.
Yeah, the biggest one is transaction counts. Are they going up or down? I mean, you can make sales go up. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to raise prices and make sales go up. But what you have to do is be able to get the traffic counts up, and that's the measure of sustainability. That's the number one. Metrics that we look at. Obviously, we want to look at our speed, that type of thing, and then we're trying to really build our loyalty program. We've got a loyalty program out there that we haven't really executed very well, and again, those are customers who want you to talk to them. It's easy to talk to them, so we really want to try and understand how frequently are they ordering from us. And understand what the behaviors of our customers are. But really, the EKG is, what's your traffic growth? Consequently, what's your sales growth?
Or, I've had folks on here that are looking at it every 15 minutes, and I've had folks on here that look at it weekly, monthly. When you say that's the number one number, how often does that, how in your head is that number? Are you looking at that over the weekend? Are you looking at that before you go to bed?
Every day.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you break that down? Are you looking at that online versus drive-through versus in-store, or is it overall amongst all the stores combined? What's the number? What's the nut versus the year before? Or
we're looking at it by hour.
By hour.
We literally look at it by hour. One of the things that we're doing right now is we've extended our hours till midnight in all of our locations. And, in the past it's been, during COVID it was down to like 8:30, and then shortly after I got here we bumped it up to 9 and 10. Now we're up to midnight in all locations. So, we're looking at every hour from 10, we open at 10 in the morning till midnight. We're looking at that every day, every morning we're looking at that, by hour.
We're not going to see breakfast. We're not going to see earlier expansion on that hour time, are we?
Well, you never say never, but I'm not a big breakfast, I'm not a big believer in the breakfast segment.
I guess you've done it in a number. Taco Bell had it, so
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense unless you have folks in the store anyway. But
yeah, well, and as more and more people are working from home, so it just isn't that same. Breakfast isn't the same avenue that it was before. It doesn't have the same.
Are you on all the delivery platforms? I didn't check that. I mean, can I get you through Uber Eats and DoorDash and all those folks, or are you? How have you navigated or dipped your toe in the delivery game?
Yeah, right now we're exclusive with DoorDash. And that was done before I got here, and I haven't seen any need to really change that at this point. But it's everything's on the table. But right now it's exclusive through DoorDash for Lion's Choice.
What percentage of traffic is going through DoorDash? Is it much?
It's growing. It's growing, particularly with our late night. But it's less than it's probably 6 or 7%.
Yeah, it's hard. It's such an interesting business. I don't understand how they make money delivering $8 worth of food, $10 worth of food.
Well, I know
how they pay the drivers. I mean, it's a really interesting model that I would dive into more. What other, as you start thinking about, you mentioned expansion a little bit. Do you have a unit number in your head as you look 5-10 years down the road for the brand? Because it hasn't really grown that much in the last decade.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be, I mentioned In-N-Out Burger earlier. I want to take my cues from the way that how patient they are about entering new markets. But, right now, we're in the process, like I said, of developing some new footprints. I'd like to do at least 2 in 25 and another 3 at least 3 in the following year. And depending on how they go, we may accelerate those. But, I'd like to see us, in the next 5 years, to be able to get to the point to where we'll develop a couple per year, but then once we start licensing, we would expect a licensee to start putting in 2 to 3 a year.
Okay, so still measured growth and kind of under control.
Yep.
We kind of talked offline as we were coming upstairs this morning about sort of retention. So the other side of the business, besides the food quality and the menu and the traffic and driving that, is making sure that you've got the people to serve those people and taking care of them. We don't need to talk about the pandemic. Coming out of the pandemic, it's been a challenge for everybody in QSR, certainly, in manufacturing and the bakery business and everything else. How has you guys have a very aggressive benefit package for the QSR industry, certainly in terms of paid benefits and vacation time and some of these other things. How has retention been? What are the things that you're doing uniquely that you think are helping? And have there been some success stories with some of those things? Yeah,
we're really fortunate in that. We've got some employees. In fact, we have one employee who has opened up the first store, still with us. She works part-time, but she's still with us. And in fact, her daughter is one of our managers for us. So we have we've got several cases where we have generations of people that are working for us and have a passion for the brand. So we have that going for us. Again, I've worked for a lot of different brands and from big companies, and I've never seen the kind of, we have, not only do we have loyalty from our customers, but we have loyalty and passion from our employees, and that really helps us. That gives us a leg up. But everybody, you've got to have certain things to just attract people and be competitive. The wages have to be competitive, the benefits have to be competitive for the industry. But the biggest thing that we've found, and I found over the years, and it's very consistent, it's the environment that you create. And no one has a bigger impact on that environment than the restaurant manager. We can create all these different programs and stuff from a corporate level, but at the end of the day, it's the person that they work with, every day, and then their teammates. And that's the thing that we really try and, educate our team on that, and our managers, on that it's like, let's just make it a fun place to work.
Are there things that you do to bring that group together to sort of try to drive those changes, or just make sure that that's top of mind for that team?
When you say that group, you're talking about
managers,
the restaurant managers?
Obviously, again, being local and being smaller, you mentioned nimbleness at the beginning of the conversation. You have an opportunity to do things that a 2,500 unit chain can't do with 30 stores. Have you been able to, anything that you've done in particular in the last 12 months, or 14 months on the job that's been effective?
Yeah, a couple of things that we do. One is, we're small enough again and local enough that we do quarterly meetings bring all of our restaurant managers in here to St. Louis, and we have a full day meeting, and it's, teaching them those kinds of things. The other thing that I've learned a long time ago that's very successful, for me anyway, has been successful is, I will do periodic, what I call roundtables with the restaurant managers. Their supervisor is there, the restaurant managers are there. They're small groups. We'll do each area 6-7 managers at a time. We go in a restaurant, we sit at a table for an hour and a half and just like talk. Tell me what's on your mind. I have very few agenda items on those, and and I'm like, tell me what's on your mind. What's going on. And again, you can't expect our employees' experience, our team members' experience to be any better than our restaurant managers' experience is. So, giving them an avenue to be heard, what I tell them is, look, guys, you can ask me anything you want. I'm going to tell you the truth. You might not like the answer, but I'm going to tell you the truth, number one. And number two is, even, a lot of the things we talk about, I can do something about right now. And if I can't, understand that I heard you, and it's going to be in my brain to where, you will actually be influencing decisions that are being made, down the road. So to answer your question, it's like, well, let me just role model the kind of environment that I want the managers to be able to create for their team. Because if they feel pushed around and they don't have an impact, that's just going to roll right downhill.
Do you do any of the roundtables with frontline folks as well, or?
Yeah, I typically do. I've done 2 since I've been here, and usually I'll do the managers, then I'll go to the assistant managers. But because of just all the things that the rapid fire changes and things we've been doing, I chose to do the second round, which I just finished 2 weeks ago, with the restaurant managers again. But to answer your question, that's the intent. Is we'll take it right through to the team.
What was the most surprising thing that came out of round 2? I mean, anything about the changes that you've made, anything about culture, anything that just sort of surprised you?
Yeah, one of the challenges that are, we are starting to do things in a way that I would call more customary with QSR. And, the brand has been very, very small, very local, really hasn't had, it's been more of a kind of a mom and pop way that they've operated. And some of the changes that we're making that, for example, the holidays that we're open and closed, we're doing things that are that are more in line with the way the typical QSR will. And my line is, if we want to be, we want to grow, we want to play with the big boys, we're going to have to act like the big boys. So, and our managers, they're the ones on the front line that get that resistance. It's like, well, for example, why don't we close early on the 4th of July? I'd love to, but, people expect us to be open, after the fireworks and stuff, those kinds of things. So there's some growing pains and some culture, issues there. And the managers have expressed that. It's like, look, we're having difficulties with that. And that's just something we're going to have to, power through.
Yeah, and those aren't easy things to navigate, right? I mean,
And I don't just say tough luck. I've offered, hey, here's what I've done in the past. Make sure you share the holidays with, get everybody to agree, like, okay, which ones are important to you, or you take that one, then Susie will take this one, and just offering up some solutions to that. I'll never try and just say deal with it.
Right. How has the transition to St. Louis been for you personally? So you mentioned you came from Atlanta.
Yeah.
Before that, you were in Seattle. So you've obviously lived in much bigger cities than our fair town. How's it been?
Well, I certainly like the lack of traffic, but no, it's a great place to ease into. I never thought that I would consider, after Lion's Choice, staying in St. Louis, but my wife and I both are, thinking that's what we want to do. We've made some good friends, and people are very friendly and very nice, and believe it or not, of course, compared to Atlanta, your drivers are very polite. Most of them.
We wouldn't all say that, but
you haven't driven in Atlanta,
yeah,
then. But yeah, I think it's a great place. I've been so busy and so tied up. I haven't had a chance to visit a lot of the sites. We're having a family reunion later this month. My grandkids and my kids are coming to visit, and we're going to go. I'm going to take some time. We're going to see the zoo and some of the other things that are out there. So.
Yeah, it's a great place to raise a family. So what about? Obviously, you haven't had a lot of time. Have there been things that you've done that have allowed you to relax and recharge? You guys like to travel? Do you get out of St. Louis, or I mean, how's that?
No, it's I'm kind of a homebody when I'm not working. I've been to a couple of the Cardinals games. I've been to one of the Blues games. I'm looking forward to a couple of concerts this year at the arena, and again, I'm looking forward to the seeing some of the sites with my grandkids and my daughters later this month.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking a few minutes to just share a little bit of your story and some of the lessons. And obviously, we're all excited to see how you carry the brand into the future, because it means so much to St. Louis. But thank you again. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much for joining me today. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed sharing these insights from folks I truly admire. Be sure and follow the show in your favorite podcast player to be alerted to newly released episodes. And share a comment if you have any feedback or future contributor recommendations.